Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is entitled, Was it a coyote or something far more sinister? Let's get straight into that. So, in 2015, I made a self-funded trip to St. Louis, Missouri, to visit my cousin who lived with her husband for 5 weeks. I'm from Australia and this was my first ever trip overseas. Though I was 18 and female, I have plenty of common sense, so my parents trusted me to make the trip, which included a 16-hour flight across the Pacific and a 5-hour stopover in Dallas Airport alone. All of this I did with relative ease. The stay at my cousin's was great. We saw the St. Louis sights and I particularly enjoyed visiting the national parks, being a nature-oriented person myself and very good with animals. This is important to my encounter as I'm able to identify animals on site due to a childhood interest in reading books about animals around, so I know a lot of the morphology of different animals. Anyway, one night my cousin decided to take me to a famous ice cream parlour whose name I can't really remember, but it is really well known and kind of set up like a kiosk. To get there, we had to drive 20 minutes. It was my cousin and her husband in the front, with myself and their 2 young children in the back. As we drove, we passed through an area that was lit by street lamps, but very, very deserted. To visualise this part of the road, it was split into 2 parts, with a median strip separating the 2 opposite flows of traffic. On our side of the road was residential houses, and on the other side was a large storm drain that was once a river. There is a large grassy and treed area on the riverside that separates it from the road, which has multiple street lights. It was a rather windy night too, and it was also autumn, fall at the time. I have always loved looking out the window at night while driving, and at this point I was looking out the window across from me, which meant I was looking across the 2 little kids. We were travelling slowly, probably about 80 kilometers per hour. So, I got a good look at the trees in the median strip. As we neared the next light, I saw what I thought was a coyote, just standing underneath a streetlight. The night was so dark around the lights, so it really illuminated the canine. I was excited. This was my first larger American animal. You see, in Australia, we don't have wolves or coyotes, only feral dogs, foxes and dingoes, which none of them live near me. I didn't point it out as everyone else in the car because as we got closer, I realised it was too big to be a coyote. It was more the size of a wolf, but its characteristics were of a coyote. You know, pointed face, longer tail. It didn't look like a dog. It had a wild grey brindle coat and thick hackles that were raised along its back. Though it showed no other sign of distress, it just stood under the light with its head lowered. But the thing that crept me quite a lot was the fact that it was staring directly at me. Not at the car, not at anyone else in the car, but at me. Our eyes were locked and I realised that its eyes were yellow, like a bright lamp-like yellow. It didn't frighten me, but made me incredibly uncomfortable, like I had a sudden rush of adrenaline. As soon as our eyes made contact, I felt like prey. We passed the beast and it continued to stare at me as we drove by. As I looked over my shoulder, just to confirm that it was still looking at me. The strange thing was, aside from its head, the coyote hadn't moved. Not a leg, not even its coat in the wind. As we got further down the road, I asked if anyone had seen it, to which the answer was no. I found that quite odd as it was so noticeable under that streetlight. Anyway, we got the ice cream, me thinking about the coyote the whole time, and as we headed home, along the same road, I looked for it, but I couldn't see it. I paid no mind to it after, and thought I'd never see it again. But then, a strange thing happened later that night. Around 4 AM, I awoke feeling terrified in my bed. I remained perfectly still, with little breathing. I do this when I get frightened in bed. It was utterly silent. like not even normal night noises that you would expect in town. Then, suddenly, there was a huge bang, and I heard a car alarm going off, and later, ambulance lights. You see, it turns out there was a car crash just outside my cousin's house. We asked around and found out that the driver had swerved to avoid a large animal and hit a power pole. No one, and I mean no one, could identify the animal. I wonder if it was my coyote, and if so, did it follow me? I know about stories of skinwalkers, but that is southwestern USA, not Missouri. I have always been sensitive to supernatural things, and I got an unnatural vibe from that coyote and that feeling of terror before the car crash was queer. I also know that my cousin's husband has Native American heritage. What was under that street lamp that night? That concludes our story tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed that short story. I found that quite a strange account. Please do let me know in the comments below if you like that. Please do share and like. And as ever, folks, be safe, not sorry.